Okay. Hello. So my name's Van Healy. I hope you can hear me. I have been interning with Home Forward at Northwest Tower. It's a site um, in Northwest Portland, and it's been going through some rough times recently. Um, it's a location for disabled and elderly people and um, people with mental health problems. And everyone who was coming into my office over the past few months has been talking about all the criminal activity in the building, um, people who are excluded, people who are trying to, drug seekers or drug dealers, or people sneaking in behind residents or other people who are there legitimately for um, services or just visitors. So the sort of like unwanted people would sneak in and then like run up the stairs or tie up the elevators, between floors of the drug dealers. And so it was really hard for people to get around in the building. A lot of them are not mobile, have walkers, or just aren't as mobile, so they can't use the stairs. So just created a really bad atmosphere, and a lot of people talked about being afraid, and just that things had gone really downhill in the last few years. A lot of people have been living there for a long time, and so they've seen this change. And the janitor would come in and talk to me about finding bodies in the stairwell, people who had OD'd, and he didn't know if they were dead or alive, and he'd have to do CPR, and that was traumatic. So just a very scary atmosphere for people, and kind of the last straw came when our property manager got punched in the face confronting one of these people. And she's a pretty formidable woman, and so for her to get injured by this was kind of, like sent a ripple of fear through the community. So I asked people, I kept asking them what they thought would help. A lot of people said, more security, 24-hour security, key fob access to the stairwell so that people couldn't just immediately run upstairs. And then, one person wanted an 11-foot fence around the entire structure, but so there were different ideas. So I spoke to my supervisor, she said it was a property management issue. Talked to the property manager. She said, she's talked to her supervisors. There's no money in the budget. There's nothing they can do. And I suggested that I would send an email to the new director of Home Forward, Michael Bonacore, who he had just met with the interns, we had met him, and so I thought I would just put it out there and see what I could do. And the property manager said, "Great, no one listens to me." So I sort of had her blessing. So in doing this, I basically used sort of pure advocacy skills, speaking on residents' behalf. I saw that they needed representation. The conditions had been that way for a long time. No one's able to do anything. Residents have spoken to us, the resident services coordinators, to the property managers. There's been no progress, so I went up the chain of command to the very top. And so I wrote a very nice email saying, thanking the director for meeting, having met with us interns, and sort of like praising his vision for Home Forward. And then I, told him about the conditions at Northwest Tower and people expressing their fear to me, and people who, have been living there for quite a while and just want a nice, safe community, and who are doing their best to keep out this criminal element, but they don't want to risk their lives to do it, and residents as well as staff who, are kind of at their last straw. So, and I asked him if we could get more security or key fobs or anything that in his power to help the tower out. He emailed back and said, he thanked me for the email and he'd see what he could do. And at that point, I wasn't super hopeful. A few weeks passed by, and I found out from another staff person that we were in fact getting 24-hour security. So I was totally, excited. I didn't know if I had anything to do with it, but I sent an email to the director again, and I said, we're getting security. I don't know if you are involved with this, but thank you, if you are. And he said that, he did have a hand in it along with some other upper management folks, but that my email had spurred on the action. So, success. Yeah. And I mean, since then, the atmosphere has been a lot calmer. People hang out in the community room a lot more. It's just, it's a lot quieter. So, I would say that my positionality and identity involvement with this, I definitely use my position as an intern. I kind of played the intern card, and there's not a lot of risk for me with something like this. Like, I could talk to, my supervisor could talk to me about it. He could have told my supervisor, like, hey, your intern's, out of line or something. He could have just ignored it, but I would have kept emailing until I got some kind of an answer. So, yeah. It's pretty easy for me. I've done office work. It's easy for me to be nice in an email. It wasn't a super risk for me, but I do kind of, just personally have I'm a little fearful of authority figures, so it was a little bit of an emotional risk for me. But I also think, as far as the residents go, and with the conditions and the situation and why I thought it was important to put myself out there, was because it is a scary situation. I am female, and I see these older people who don't have full mobility, in these situations with criminals and people who really don't care about anyone else and their safety and their comfort. And so yeah, I mean, I could empathize, and I was right there with them with the fear. So, and plus, realizing that I could leave, I could go home. I was only there for 8 hours, and that was their home. They had nowhere else to go. So, that really resonated with me. It was interesting that, when I talked to my supervisor about it, she was like, oh, they must have found the money somewhere. So that's cool, but I'm just wondering, that's a coincidence. I wonder if, because I was an intern bringing this up, if there was like a safety issue with PSU, if they wanted to make sure that this got addressed. I don't know, but as far as reflecting on my advocacy practice, I realized that this was kind of this was like direct advocacy. I kind of like stepped in and helped fix this situation. There wasn't really coaching involved. There was no empowerment. So those are skills that I'm going to need to work on in future advocacy. And I think, I did ask the clients what they wanted, and then I followed up and asked them, I've been asking them how things have changed and if they think it's been helpful. And the response has been mostly positive. Some people say they feel like it's more of a prison because they have to show their ID when they come in. But the guards now have been there for a little while. They're getting to know people. There's less checking. They kind of, they know who's supposed to be there and who's not, in general. So that's lessened. But, that's a valid complaint, feeling like living in a prison. So, yeah, it's not ideal, but it does seem that it worked as far as getting a response from upper management and the residents. We sent out a thank you card to them. So, yeah. So it was an interesting. I was happy to have my voice heard. So anyway, I hope this made sense, and thank you.